Test, test, test. Now I think we are good. I think we're good now. So thumbs up if you can hear me in the chat, blabbering for 5 minutes about nothing while my mic was muted. So that's super fun. But I'll try to recap. Let's see here. Let's give it a couple minutes, a couple seconds to make sure people can hear me now. So give me 1 second while we wait for some confirmation from the chat. Test, test, test. Test, test, test. We were good to go. All right. It only took 5.5 minutes. Cool. Live streaming at its finest, especially when Moose isn't around and I got to run this by myself. So, recap of the 5 minutes that you missed while I was muted. Let's go back to the daily plug. Biggest recap, not a ton of pinnacle steam moves this week, not a ton of sharp action that we can analyze. Normally, we can draw our entire player pool for PGA DFS from these pinnacle steam moves that are posted in the daily plug on Wednesdays at OccupyFantasy.com. Just 8 golfers this week. Let's take a look at the projected ownership for some of these guys. So let's go back to the Occupy model, which ranks every golfer on FanDuel and DraftKings. And if we look at Gary Woodland, we see him projected for in that mid-range, 10 to 15%. That's fine to get leverage. Triangle Man, if I can type the name in. 9 to 10%, another leverage play potentially. The one that I think is going to be really popular here is Keegan Bradley. He ranks pretty well in the model as well. Let's see here. Yeah, Keegan Bradley, 21% line move as of this afternoon. Let's look at Oosthuizen and Day to see what their ownership looks like. Oost, not too popular, 13%. Remember, 15% is that mark where we really consider them highly owned. Jason Day, just 4%, has been playing well. No surprise there. And then let's go back. I see whoever the Ricky Fowler syndicate is has continued to burn their bankroll. They have bet him once again, seemingly for the 100th straight week. We joke about this every single week. No surprise. Ricky Fowler got bet again. Also no surprise, just 7% ownership on DraftKings projected. If you have the stones, go ahead and get your leverage there because whoever is betting him every week has not been deterred. I hope for their sake that Ricky wins an event before they go bankrupt. And then Ortiz and Gim. Let's see what they look like as far as ownership goes. Ortiz just 5%. Gim also just 5% on DraftKings, 7% on FanDuel. So really just one highly owned golfer in the Pinnacle Steam Moves list. Let's go back here. Just one highly owned golfer, and he's not even that highly owned. It's Keegan Bradley, 17% projected. So let's see here. The one thing I think we need to consider, and this is a great transition. E in the chat asks, who are your core plays? And so I'm going to scroll down here, and this is the lineup strategy section of the Daily Plug. Normally it's behind the paywall. I mean, it's still behind the paywall, but I'm showing you guys here on screen tonight because I do think it's important with an invitational event and what that means. So we talked about in the past, and I'm going to try to relate this because I build 150 PGA DFS lineups, but I'm also going to try to relate this to those of you who create just one lineup, 3 to 5 lineups, 10 to 20 lineups, or even up to 150 lineups. What a core means and how you, because this is the actionable information that you need, right? If I'm just talking about exposures and cores and whatnot, but what does that mean for you as a single entry player, as a 150 max player, as a 10 max player, whatever it may be? I'm going to try to help you out and navigate that. So a little background here. If we saw last week was an invitational event as well. We also had, and I liked it as Niramata put it here. Let me find it here. Yeah, a chalk blizzard, which is probably the best way to describe it because all top 15 of the highest owned golfers made the cut last week. As a result, we saw one of the highest 6 out of 6 cut percentages from the field in all contest types that we've seen in some time. We're really not going to win when that happens, right? We're looking for leverage. We're looking for lower owned guys. When the field does that well, I mean, we just got to chalk that up to a loss, literally chalk, and move on to the next week. Find our weeks where the field doesn't do as well. So one way we can do that, and again, as Niramata points out this lineup strategy section, I encourage you to go read the whole thing at the Daily Plug, OccupyFantasy.com. But what he talks about is a little bit harder to get leverage in an invitational event where there are only 120 golfers. It's not as bad as like the Masters per se, but still a smaller field. A good amount of the field's going to make the cut, top 65. So what I like to do, and when I'm building my 150, or if you're building just a couple of lineups, your core for a week like this should be really heavy on a couple guys. two, three, four guys, and maybe not all in, but pretty close to all in. Maybe in 150 lineups, you're having 50% exposure to these guys. You're making 10 lineups, 50, 60, 70% exposure. You're making 1 to 3 lineups. These guys are in every single one of the lineups you make. Just because you have to get leverage somewhere, and all the decent plays are going to be 5 to 15% owned. The really good plays are going to be 15% plus. So try to find a 5 to 15% guy that you can really go heavy on. Find some reasons to do it. That's what you want to do this week. On a normal week where it's 160 golfers, tons of golfers can win, not as many make the cut, I have a more spread out approach, and I'm playing guys. I'm playing a core of like 8 to 12 golfers, 8 to 15 golfers, and I'm playing 25% of them, and just getting double or the triple the leverage of the field, maybe sometimes more. Whereas on a week like this, I want to get 10 times leverage, 20 times leverage on a golfer to really hope that I can nail one of those core guys to get to the top 2 or 3 of the tournament to have a chance of winning something. So this is a week where you want the core to go all in. So if you're making 3 lineups, you probably want 2, 3, 4 guys in all 3 of your lineups. You're making 10 lineups, 5 to 7 of your lineups should have 3 or 4 of the same guys. So that's what we're looking for this week. Now, for the key question of who are the core, obviously that's the question everyone wants to know. Who are the core guys that we should be targeting this week? So for me, let's scroll back up to the top here. And we talked about Gary Woodland, a big line move, normal ownership, sub 15%. He's one of my guys. And in fact, the plug cover boy is my other core play. And I think he's the guy we can get the most leverage on this week. Russell Henley. Let's go back to the model. And if we sort by OF index, you see that he's the number 3 ranked golfer in our model. Pure analytics, no context. He's the number 3 ranked golfer. Just 6% projected ownership on DraftKings, 5% on FanDuel. So if we put him in half our lineups, that's literally 10 times the field. If Henley can replicate his success from prior events at this course, if he can continue his approach play, and he gets in the top 5, and half our lineups have him, and only 5% of the field has him, that's how you get ahead in PGA DFS. Now, you're going to have some, when this happens and he misses the cut, let's say, you're going to have some weeks where you airball, and that's fine. Just understand that the risk that you're taking. All right, Ken in the chat. What's up, Ken? I know Ken's been grinding some golf lately. Has some good insight in our staff chat. So the 0 to 1% guys at the top of the model, Redmond, Neesmith, Rosner, are you playing these guys heavily, or are they more just blips in the model? Yeah, so these are the guys that if I can get some confirmation elsewhere, whether it's a betting market move, whether it's just some cappers are on them, whether there's some context plays, some quotes that Niramata gives out, then I'll go heavy on them. But if it's just the model, and again, the model a lot of times is early on a lot of these guys. The model was on Triangle Man all last year, Corey Connors all last year, but it's also on guys like Matthew Neesmith, who shot like 9 over on day 1 last week. It's also guys like Rosner who are coming over from the European Tour, and he had good numbers over there. So I think if I had to answer the question, because he has a wider range of outcomes and not as much U.S. data, where as we know, Redmond and Neesmith haven't been that great recently. Rosner, great in Europe, not great in his 1 or 2 events over here in the United States. He would be the guy that I would take a chance on and get some leverage on. As far as Redmond or Neesmith, I do have them in my player pool, 5 to 10% max. That's still 5 to 10 times the field because they're going to be like 1% owned. But maybe they make a run and 10% of my lineups have them. But I'm not going to go all in on guys that just the model likes in a sport where there's a lot of math involved, but many pros and much of the field is playing math-based plays as well. If we get some context to add to it, that's when we can take some shots. So I hope that answers the question. All right, 9:13. We've been live officially for like 8 minutes since I just talked to myself for 5 minutes with a muted mic. If you have extra questions, get them in the chat. We'll be here till 9:20, 9:25, 9:30, depending on the number of questions we get. So we talked about this week being a week where you want to get heavy exposure. You're playing 3 lineups, and this is another question as well. Which 3 guys from which ownership range do you go heavy on if you're playing 1 lineup? 3 lineups, 5 lineups. And to me, I've seen varying schools of thought here. And let's just say a guy like Keegan Bradley, who we like. The model likes him. He has a big line move. Going to be popular, 15+% owned. Those aren't really the types of guys I would look to get leverage on and go all in on my 3 max lineups. What I would probably do is try to find a 5 to 15% owned golfer, maybe less if you really have a stand. But guys like Russell Henley, guys like Gary Woodland, these guys that are in that medium ownership range, maybe lower owned, because you get more leverage that way if they hit. If all three of your lineups have, I don't know, who's the highest owned golfer this week? Let's just take an example, an extreme example here. I guess it is potentially Keegan Bradley or Victor Hovland. And you go all in on them, but 20% of the field has them, you're not really gaining a huge edge with only three lineups. 150 lineups, sure, right? But only three lineups, you're not really gaining a big edge. So for me, I like to find the 5 to 15% owned golfers, and that's my core. For most weeks in general, even in 150, but especially 3 max, I'm finding guys to play in every lineup. It's going to be those mid-range guys, because if those hit, then you can rotate some studs around them, some high-owned guys around them, get the right combination if they hit. So that's my advice this week. So any favorite high-owned guys is the question in the chat. So yeah, if we sort by DraftKings ownership here, I do like Keegan Bradley. Obviously, gets the line move. Gotta like Morikawa here. This is a course that specializes in approach play. One of the best iron players on tour. Gotta like Morikawa. Tony Finau, big fan. I think Niramata wrote him up this week. And Cantlay is the other guy that I would look at. Cantlay's funny to me because for the PGA Championship, not PGA Championship, is the PGA, the PGA Championship. He came in with just ridiculously poor recent form, super low ownership, and it's always funny to me because we see a lot of touts, a lot of DFS players, a lot of bettors. This guy's in poor recent form, can't play him, especially at his price. But I mean, we don't really know what's going on behind the scenes, right? This could be anything. All it takes is one coaching session with your coach or your swing coach to get back right or figure out what's going on. I don't know. There's a variety of reasons why someone's game could fall off and come back on. And when they have the long-term form of someone like Patrick Cantlay, I mean, I'm willing to take shots on those guys at low ownership. That's the same reason I'm looking to take shots on guys like, this is another angle, and it especially plays this week. We mentioned it in our Discord channel today, is the low-owned stud angle. There are some PGA DFS pros that exclusively employ this strategy for while risking 6 figures per PGA slate. And that's playing guys who have a high ceiling long-term that are low-owned this week for whatever reason. So if you look at the guys at the top of the salary range this week, that would mean guys like Bryson, guys like Rory, both sub 10% owned, despite having won tournaments this year, despite having multiple majors, just 8% owned this week. And why? Because their betting market odds don't really align with their salaries. They haven't played great recently, particularly Rory. Yeah, they have the long-term ceiling. Would anyone be surprised if Bryson or Rory won a PGA event? No. And so a lot of PGA DFS pros take advantage of that bias, poor recent form, whatever it is, and go really heavy on these studs on these types of weeks. Especially on a week where we're looking to get really heavy leverage. I don't mind that approach at all this week. Just be careful. The one thing I will note, we talked about it. I just got word of it before the show started. Rory withdrew. Let's go to the article really quickly. Rory withdrew from the Pro-Am today and withdrew from his press conference. He's expected to play tomorrow. Expected to play this week. He actually went back out and did his scouting or whatever the hell he does. I don't know golf terms. He's expected to play. Just something to monitor before lock. Maybe he withdraws, maybe he doesn't. But it sounds like he's going to play. Just keep it in mind. I mean, maybe that makes him an ultra low-owned stud if people are worried about his involvement in the tournament. So what were we talking about here? So favorite high-owned guys. Yeah, so, I mean, if we go back to the model here. Here we go. Yeah, so high-owned guys, it would be, Morikawa, Bradley, Cantlay for me. But, this is the funny thing to me. Going back to Cantlay, that's what we were talking about. PGA Championship, he was super low-owned. Poor recent form. Now, all of a sudden, he had one decent tournament, the PGA Championship, and now he's fixed. He's fine in everyone's eyes, and he's 15% owned, despite being, sub 10% for like 6 straight weeks after playing like shit. But now he's fine. Had 1 week. I mean, that's crazy to me. That's the type of bias that I think is really evident in PGA DFS. Granted, Cantlay does rate as a pretty good play this week in a vacuum, but it's just surprising to me that all of a sudden one event makes him a safe play. I don't know. Seems crazy to me. I wish he didn't rate well, and then we could fade him this week. But he does rate pretty well. I think he had some line moves, right? No line move, but pretty interesting to me. And it's always something to think about. You're looking for low-owned plays, right? Looking for guys who have won recently in the last year or so. Their skills fit the golf course, but maybe they have poor recent form. The betting odds reflect that. We listen to our interviews with Jeff Sherman, head golf odds maker at the Superbook. He literally sets odds to win at the Superbook, and oftentimes in his interview, he'll mention recent form. Maybe he believes it, maybe he doesn't, but he has to account for it in the odds because bettors do take that into account, especially casual bettors. And as a result, we'll see guys with poor recent form uh, be uh, be overpriced, quote unquote, compared to their odds to win. And as a result, we know that's a big driver of ownership in PGA DFS. So, um, so yeah, recent form has a big impact on odds to win and ownership. And as a result, we can take a stand on those guys and just hope that whatever was bothering them, whatever variance was getting to them, they're back. And that's how really you can find low owned plays for tournaments. Let's see. Ken's favorite question that we get here every week. How about a winner, a favorite play, a fade, and a guy that you're playing that we shouldn't? Good question. Good question. So for me, let's see here. I got this sorted by ownership. I'm going to say so. My favorite play is Russell Henley, hands down. 5% ownership in a week where we're trying to get leverage. Easy Russell Henley, my favorite play. Winner. Is a good question. I'll say JT gets it done. Justin Thomas leads the model by a significant margin. Fade. Let's see here. So we got this sorted by projected ownership. Excuse me. For me, it's probably. I mean, I have way less Victor Hovland. I do have some just in some lineups that don't have a ton of ownership. So Hovland would be my fade, I think, this week at the highest ownership. And then a guy that I'm playing that you shouldn't. I mean, every week got plenty of those guys. For me, I mean, Doc Redman in the model literally 0% owned. Neesmith 1% owned. Rosner we talked about. Rosner 1% owned. Those guys certainly qualify. But as far as a guy that I have a decent amount of that you should probably stay away from, let's see here. I'm just scrolling down. I'm trying to find here who I might have that you should probably second guess a little bit. It's probably Norlander, who's a little further down, but I do have a ton this week. He's only 1% owned. I have like 10 to 15%. Not a lot of guys I like down in that range. He's one of them. So I guess Norlander qualifies. Any sneaky plays? Yeah, let's try this out. Let's look at DraftKings sub 5%. Let's sort by. Let's see here. A couple guys stand out to me. So Varner and Scott, pretty high in the model. Scott actually got a line move at some books, some of the more casual books, 1,000-cent move. So I think Scott's probably one of the more sneaky plays, I would say, this week. Brendan Todd, Niramata wrote him up in the plug. To be fair, Niramata writes him up whenever he gets the chance, but Todd, I think, would be a sneaky play. Doug Gim got a line move. Remember, we've seen Gim at like 15, 20% ownership some weeks. He burned us, burned the field. Now all of a sudden he's back to 5% ownership despite being just 7,200. I mean, just another bias. I think Gim is super sneaky. And then Carlos Ortiz probably fits the bill too as an actual line move at Pinnacle. Just 7K, only 5% projected ownership. So those would probably be my sneaky plays. If you're getting real sneaky and you want something to back it up, Jason Day, literally no reason for him to have a line move based on his recent play, based on everything going on. Got a line move, only 4% owned. So there's a handful of guys to get you some low owned action in your lineup. All right, 9:23, 7 minutes left roughly. If you have any final questions, get them into the chat. While we have a decent amount of people here, be sure to check out. We tweeted out today, twitter.com/OccupyFantasy. I forgot to put the link in the description. But we're giving away $500 in DraftKings gift cards. No strings attached. All you have to do is enter the contest. You can gain a bunch of entries by watching our videos, subscribing to our channel. But we're going to draw a winner for $500 in DraftKings gift cards, fully free. All you got to do is enter your email address. And yeah, go do that. If you retweet it, you get more entries. Just go to our Twitter, twitter.com/OccupyFantasy. We tweeted out earlier this afternoon. Go retweet it. Go to the link, enter the contest. We always say, always play free rolls. Why not play a free roll for $500 to add to your DraftKings balance? So go do that. Is it more of a stars and scrubs week or more balanced week? Great question, Ken. Great question. It's funny to me because if we go back to the line move section, no studs here, no true studs here. And for me, there's a couple guys. Let's go back to the model really quickly. And let's get this filter off. So I mean, a lot of guys have warts at the top, and their ownership's kind of held in check. And there are a lot of guys in that mid range, especially on a tougher course, that I think can win. This course is going to play really tough this week. So for me, it's more of a balanced build. There are some weeks where I have a ton of 6K, 7K guys. That's not the case this week. So it tells me that it's more of a balanced week, and I think that's how you should probably build your lineups. Sorry. So reading the chat here, a question about Henley or Gim, trying to decide between the two. Yeah, Henley for me got written up in the model. Let me see. Did he get the? No official line move for Henley, but I know he's got some sharp action out there. I'll say that. So yeah, for me it's Henley. Between Henley and Gim, it's close because Gim does get the line move, but Henley's had success here, and I know this is one of the courses that the course history truthers place an emphasis on. So I would say Henley. Both are I think are great plays at their ownership. Henley gets the edge for me, especially with the higher model score. Cool. 5 minutes. Any final questions? Let's get them in. We'll be back with UFC on Saturday. UFC took a 1 week break from Memorial Day. I'll be back on Saturday. I'll be live with Jake, owner of MMADFS.com, breaking down the UFC slate. Again, the daily plug, OccupyFantasy.com, is up. It's published. All of Nirmata's top plays. He's a top, I don't know. It says top 100 PGA DFS player. I would argue he's probably higher. I don't think the Roto Grinders rankings accurately depict a true ROI. In fact, I know that's the case. So, maybe I'm biased. I think Nirmata's a top 50. Don't let him know I said that. Top 25 PGA DFS player. So, but anyways, all of his top plays in the daily plug, all of the betting market analysis, and then most importantly, his lineup strategy section. Honestly, that's the most important thing every week. Read the lineup strategy section, know how to build your lineups, what this tournament means. So go check that out, OccupyFantasy.com. The Occupy model ranks every golfer with projected ownership. Ken also says League of Legends is back next week, which I can't wait to break my losing streak. It wasn't fair. I was losing a decent amount, some negative variance. And then they just go on break, and I can't even get my money back. Come on, man. It's like the bookie shutting down shop after I have some losing weeks. Like, come on, can I try to get my money back? But I'm glad it's back next week. The daily plug will be back, and we'll do some live streams, I'm sure, for League of Legends. Summer season, back in session. Summer split, whatever it's called. So, all right, I think that'll do it for the show. Appreciate everyone listening. If you have any additional questions, be sure to join our Discord channel. Click the join button right below the video, OccupyFantasy.com/Discord. The tennis plug has been doing really well. Our new writer, Ross, he's been chatting it up in the tennis Discord channel. Obviously, we're there for PGA and all the other major sports, so go check it out. Subscribe to the channel if you're not already. Somehow 60% of our viewers aren't subscribed. I don't know why. Click subscribe, get notified whenever we go live or upload new videos. Give us a thumbs up if you like the golf content. Anytime we do a video, if you give us a thumbs up, it lets us know that we should continue to make more of that type of content. If I do these golf streams and it gets like 2 likes, we might shut it down at some point. Give us a thumbs up. Let us know to keep making these types of videos. And again, if you missed it for some reason 5 minutes ago, we're doing a giveaway for $500 in DraftKings gift cards, fully free to enter, no purchase necessary. Check out our Twitter, twitter.com/OccupyFantasy. Earlier this afternoon, we tweeted just a couple of tweets ago with the link to enter that. So I'm Brian Jester, co-founder at Occupy Fantasy, at Brian Jester FF on Twitter. We are at Occupy Fantasy. Appreciate everyone listening. Good luck this week, and we'll talk to you soon.